They drove me there in the dark black road. Black trees. A gate that looked like a frozen mouth. I remember thinking about how small my reasons had been. A few late-night games, a pocket of my own cash, the noisy approval of friends who'd all worked at something. I'd wanted to be responsible. Instead, I became someone else's experiment. My name is Sami. I am 17, and on paper I am careful and boring. Steady home, steady parents, steady everything. Inside, I wanted the friction of a life I'd never had. Gordon's ad was friction I could afford. The phone interview smelled of something clipped and patient. He asked if I was frightened by loud sounds, how tall I was, whether I could follow rules exactly. He told me the job paid handsomely. He told me I would know when I arrived. He was right. I woke up on a white bed, with a watch on my wrist that pulsed my heart rate and a small line marked Lifeline. The room was a blank paper, everything white, everything small. The door stood unlocked. Beyond it ran a corridor with cages on both sides, signs that read names like Prototype 1, Maxus, and descriptions printed in capital letters that didn't belong in a zoo. The animals didn't belong either. A tiger the size of a house, pale as algae and thick as a storm, that rolled its eyes and made the earth shudder when it breathed. A paper on the table and a set of chunky headphones sat like props. The note read like a contract for survival. Wear the headphones, cancel the roars. Check the cages every hour or everything opens. If you see another person, shoot him. There is a pistol in the drawer. If alarms blare, open Maxus and let him do his job. If Maxus loses, shoot yourself. If you fall asleep during your shift, you'll wake up in a cage. You'll be fine until you're 20. Then they stop being easy. The rules were clinical and obscene. My hands shook reading them. The watch kept an indifferent beat against my wrist. I slid the headphones on because the first roar had burned my ears. The sound was a thing that gouged memory. The headphones muffled it into a distant freight train that made my teeth vibrate instead of my skull. As I folded the note, a new smell came, sharp, sour, like fish left to rot in summer. It crawled under the door and into the room and made my stomach lurch. Rule 9. Follow foul stench, enter cage, look it in the eyes. The part that said they can sense fear felt personal, like a warning aimed at the particular shape of me. I walked with a stuttering sort of courage. The corridor lights slid across metal and fur. The smell thickened until it felt like a hand. I found Prototype 5 in a tank with water sloshing at her feet. Magenta skin like bruised bougainvillea, gills along her neck, and eyes that did not blink in time. Her gills were red at first, then a cold blue bled into the slits. She lifted a face to me and smiled in a way that knew my middle name. Her mouth opened and a sound pooled out, an odd song, thin as thread, sweet as a lullaby. It made the edges of my vision go warm. I looked away because Rule 7 had warned me. If her gills turn blue and she looks you in the eyes, look away and put the headphones on. I obeyed like a man following an old prayer. The song tried to crowbar itself through the headphones. The device chewed it into static and tired air. My body wanted to answer, wanted to sink into whatever promise she hummed. I imagined my life unfastening and spilling like coins. I imagined telling my father I had earned it. I imagined my friends nodding the way a man who had learned a lesson should be nodded at. I followed the smell instead of her song. It came from deeper in. A room hung with bay windows like tear sockets. A pile of something that might have been garbage or shell went on and on. I stepped into the enclosure and found myself on a raised path, and a creature that didn't so much look at me as calculate me. Its eyes held the same flat patience as a clock. I forced my face forward, forced my look into its orbit, and let nothing move behind my ribs. The stench faded like a bad dream being pinched. When I came back to the corridor, the alarm was a thing that did not hurry, it tore. A red light pulsed somewhere, and a mechanical klaxon started to count teeth. Rule 4 screamed at me from the paper in my head. Open Maxis. Under the bed, my fingers found the button. The wall of the cage folded with a hydraulic sigh. Maxis arced out into the light, a carved, angry animal, scenting the air like hunger had learned to walk. He ran. The other thing arrived, not with a roar, but with a sound like a church bell being dragged over gravel. It was a prototype I hadn't seen in print. Long-jointed, all elbows and empty, like someone had stretched a nightmare. Maxis met it in the corridor, and the air went pressurized with their bodies, with fur and muscle and ragged machine-like teeth. They smashed into each other, and the corridor became a drum of bone. I watched where Maxis took blows and felt the lifeline on my wrist spike, like the watch was trying to tell me what my skeleton had already guessed. Then Maxis faltered. He backed. The other thing pressed, chewing space. He staggered and fell, and the sound it made was animal and final. Rule 5 hammered into me. If Maxis loses, shoot yourself. The words felt hot in my mouth, as if I could taste the metal of the pistol in the drawer. I thought of the games I'd wanted to buy, the small swell of pride I'd imagined, the idea that I could earn my way into a new life. I thought of my father sleeping 3 miles away, his jaw slack against a pillow, and how ordinary that was in a world that had decided what my ordinariness cost. There was a minute, a breath, a choice. If I shot myself, the note promised an end to that night, and the safe wake-up with money in my pocket. If I didn't, the prototypes would spill through the gate, and the small town would be a skeleton in the morning. The pistol felt like a necessary cruelty. My hands were steadier than I expected. I pulled the drawer, felt the cold metal, and looked at the gun like a tool you must use. I did not think of glory or cowardice. I thought only of the thin, bright people I loved. I thought of the way my friends would brag on a bus. I thought of the watch and its lifeline. Then I put the barrel to my temple. The world went like a curtain. I woke up in the white room with the watch tapping against my pulse, my pocket heavier than it had any right to be. $150. My limbs ached in places memory had no maps for. I slid the headphones onto my ears with a slow, automatic care. The corridor was closed and quiet. The note sat on the table like a breathing thing. On the paper, Rule 10 said mornings would be like this until I turned 20.